Welcome to this ebook on culturally responsive and socially just counseling practice. I want to do a little introduction by video so that you have a bit of a sense of who I am as a person and as a professional, and also to talk a little bit about the development of this book and why I've chosen an ebook format. So my name is Sandra Collins, and I have been working in the area of multicultural counseling for the last 20 years in my research, practice, and my writing. And I also have been actively involved in the development of our graduate program at Athabasca University, and particularly in the infusing of culture and social justice emphases throughout that program. This book developed in a unique way that I want to explain from the beginning because it affects the structure of the book. One of the things that I decided to do was to pay attention to the ways in which my colleagues from across the country were integrating the ideas of culture and social justice into their own practice work with clients. So I started with a set of key competencies that I thought would be relevant to multicultural counseling and social justice. And then I did a content analysis of over 30 case studies over the last 4 years, looking at the ways in which those key concepts that I started with played out in the practice examples that I was reviewing, but also paying attention to the things that I had missed. And this was a really informative process for me. I've been challenged in my language use, I've been challenged in my thinking, I've been introduced to new ways of approaching things. And I hope that out of all of this, what has emerged in the culturally responsive and socially just counseling model is not just my own thinking. Well, I know it's not just my own thinking. It's my analysis of the thinking of other people, integrated with my own professional development over the last 20 years. It shows, I think, some of the complexity and the nuance of working within issues of cultural diversity, and also some of the different ways of looking at social justice and how that plays out in practice. You'll see throughout the ebook that I've actually commented on language use, and I've commented on some of the tensions that exist within the literature and within professional practice. One of the things I want to talk about in terms of those tensions as you start into the book is the idea of social justice. I want to make clear that this is a counseling book. This is about how you engage in counseling practice with your clients. But it's also a book about social justice and how we position social justice within the professions of counseling and psychology. There's really two main themes that I see emerging in the work of my colleagues and in my review of the professional literature, and that's the idea first that we are responsible to some degree for social change. And you will see that theme running through this ebook. The basic premise there is that when we start to really pay attention to the social determinants of health, in other words, the things within our society, the discourses, the norms, the examples of cultural oppression, the exclusion of particular peoples and populations from access to resources and services, all of those things are impacting our clients when they come into our office to talk about particular presenting concerns. And so from that perspective, it's really important that we begin in counseling and psychology to more directly think about how we can have an impact on the environments in which our clients live. So you will see that theme threaded throughout this book. But the other strong focus on social justice in practice is the idea that social justice plays out in every moment that we interact with people. So from the moment that you meet a client, the environment that you set for that client, the way in which you build a relationship with that client, how you establish egalitarianism in that relationship and pay attention to your relative privilege and marginalization outside of the counseling context and how that may play out in the interplay between your cultural identities within the counseling context. It also plays out in how we understand client problems and how we conceptualize change and how effective we are at paying attention to their particular worldviews and their views of health and healing. So in this sense, everything that we do in counseling has a social justice thread to it, or has a social justice lens that can be applied to it. And that's the primary focus in the book, is about how we do counseling from a culturally responsive and socially just perspective. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is the whole structure of the ebook and why I chose an ebook. One of the things that I was able to do through an ebook that I wouldn't have been able to do through a traditional print book is make transparent the content analysis that I've done. So essentially, every paragraph or cluster of paragraphs in this book has been coded in the background. And it's been coded to learning objectives and the key concepts within the culturally responsive and socially just counseling model. And from those, you can link to anywhere in the book where those key concepts are the primary focus of what the person is talking about. I've done this because it gives you an opportunity to navigate through the book in a less linear fashion than you would traditionally do if you were just reading chapter by chapter. So I hope what this is going to accomplish for you is a sense of an overall picture of culturally responsive and socially just counseling that's a bit different than I would have been able to achieve if I had just had separate chapters contributed by individuals that weren't interconnected in some way. And I think it's this interconnection that I was able to accomplish within the ebook format that makes this a unique resource. One of the things I also want to say at the beginning is that although I talk about cultural competency in this ebook, I also talk strongly about cultural humility and about continuing competency. And so I want to make sure from the beginning that I position the ebook itself as a work in progress. Because each time I received a new chapter or I reviewed a new chapter elsewhere, I was shaped by that, and my thinking was shaped by that. And I know that if I was to 3 or 4 years from now review another set of chapters, that the glossary terms would change and the way in which I conceptualize the model would shift slightly. Maybe not dramatically at this point because of the process of development that it's gone through, but it is a work in progress, and we are each a work in progress. And cultural competency, for me at least, is not a destination. It is a process. And I am continually learning, and I hope that you will position yourself also as that continually learning, lifelong learning person as you enter into this new process of discovery through this ebook. That's it. I hope that you enjoy your learning process, and I hope that I've created something that is user-friendly in a unique way.